Angus Taylor, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
The Liberal Party has long taunted Labor for being unable to deliver a surplus. This was the benchmark you set for responsible economic management. It must be hard tonight to watch Labor pass a test that the coalition couldn't.
Well, we did deliver budget balance in 2019, as you know.
Not a surplus.
And of course, the result of that was when we came to the end of the pandemic, the budget was in surplus from late 2021 through to the election. Now, the fact of the matter is a drover's dog could have delivered this surplus because there's been a more than $80 billion windfall for this financial year. $80 billion windfall. In revenues, and that's a big number, David.
But it does take more.
So the real test, though, is this, and this is the crucial point: delivering a budget in 1 year when you've inherited an $80 billion windfall is great, good. We want to see that, but the real test is whether Labor was able to deliver sustainable budgets and a sustainable budget balance over the medium term, and this budget doesn't do that. And this is very, very important because the failure to do that is leaving serious inflationary pressures in the economy.
Let me just pick up your point about a drover's dog could have delivered this. It also does take some discipline, though, doesn't it? I mean, look at the coalition's final budget last year before you lost office. I mean, you splashed far more than Labor has on low and middle income tax bonuses, handouts to pensioners. You cut fuel excise for everyone, even those who didn't necessarily need it. And all this, as inflation was starting to spike, where was the restraint that you're now preaching?
There was a budget balance from the end of the pandemic in November 2021 through to May 2022 when the election was held.
So we now look in small 3-4 month windows.
Well, the truth was that's when the economy opened up. If you wanted us to, no country in the world was ever going to deliver a balanced budget during the pandemic for good reasons. And remember, Labor wanted to spend $81 billion extra during the pandemic.
The point is, at the end of that, you're then splashing cash, and it does take discipline.
Well, not this kind of splashing cash. I mean, there's $185 billion of extra spending in this budget. I'm sure we're going to talk about all the measures. You can't get through $185 billion of measures in a few hours. That's what's extra in this budget.
Right, let's talk about
$2 billion, but this is a crucial point. There's $2 of extra spending initiatives for every dollar of extra revenue initiatives. This is inflationary. And that's the real risk in this budget, that hard-working Australians trying to get ahead are going to be held back by inflationary pressures, ongoing high interest rates.
So you're disagreeing with that?
Well, I've just heard Chris Richardson say it is inflationary, and Chris is an independent economist who I very much trust on these things.
The Treasury's wrong.
Well, Chris Richardson has been very clear on this. And if you're adding $2 of spending, I think they were talking about the energy initiatives net of rebates, so it was a very technical point. But $2 of extra spending initiatives for every dollar of extra revenue initiatives, that's inflationary.
Let's go through some of the new measures. A $40 a fortnight increase in Job Seeker to help those struggling to put food on the table. Will you back that? Well,
we very much want to. We want the very best for someone looking for a job. But the best thing for someone looking for a job is to get into a job. And as you and I have discussed, 430,000 job vacancies out there at the moment. That's almost one for every unemployed person. There's a lot of jobs to go around, and the key now is to get people into work, because the increase in income they will get from getting into work will be so much more than $40.
Okay,
I mean, it'd be hundreds of dollars. Well, I'm saying we will work through these things methodically. Look, we've got $185 billion of extra spending in this budget. There's a lot to work through. We'll work through it systematically, and I'm not going to give you answers after a few hours on all of these things. But
you can't say whether you. What about single parents?
Well, I think a
lot of women in particular need that extra help.
Yeah, and
will you support that?
I understand that. And again, this is something I'm not going to make a decision ahead of going through the processes with my colleagues. You know how it works.
So you're saying all this is inflationary, but you're not sure whether.
I'll give you some things that don't, where money doesn't need to be spent the way it is. $45 billion of spending that we've opposed in recent months, with $18 billion of interest costs attached to it.
These are the off-budget funds.
There's $18 billion of on-budget interest costs associated with that, David. So it's not off-budget.
Okay. What about the measures tonight? Is there anything you oppose?
Yeah, there are. So we've seen in this budget an extra 10,000 public servants in Canberra and putting aside those working on national security or frontline services, we think that's excessive. We don't think that's necessary. You know, bigger government is not the answer when you've got inflationary pressures and cost of living.
Is that even $1 billion?
Well, it's significant numbers, and we'll have more to say about that. We're giving a budget. The leader will give a budget reply speech on Thursday.
Right. What about the energy bill relief?
Well, we've been supportive of that all the way along, as you know. We've always supported that. And we've supported it for a simple reason, that Labor's failed to deliver on its $275 electricity price reduction. It is clear in the budget now, that is a broken promise. They will not deliver it on this term of Parliament. Those numbers are now laid out very clearly.
Okay, so
in the budget.
just finally on this,
and
you're backing that energy bill relief, but on all the support payment increases,
well, and
it's a bit unsure.
I was explaining to you why this one is different before you interrupted me, and it's different because Labor made a promise. People worked on that expectation. Labor's not going to deliver on that promise. So it is understandable that this is an area where there is a role for government to play. But I'd have to say, in general, what we want to see from the government is taking pressure off inflation. This is not a budget that does it. A typical family with 3 kids will be $25,000 worse off a year under this budget than they were. And I tell you, I know, David, there'll be a lot of people out there listening to this or watching this right now who are feeling worse off than they were a year ago. And this is not a budget that's going to alleviate that situation.
Angus Taylor, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.